Hey, and welcome to Matt and Jess TV. I am Matt Roast.
And I'm Jessica Bun Bun.
Welcome to our reaction and review for Nine Bodies in a Mexican Morgue, episode 3. Look at you guys giving us actual answers at the halfway point of your season. You haven't told us who is behind all these people getting murdered, but you're at least showing us probably why the plane is where it is.
Absolutely. And it's also, for me, giving the motivation of why everybody is getting killed off at this plane. Because if
Yeah.
somebody is trying to get to the product that is on the plane,
Yeah.
all these people can't be there. So who is really behind it? We have a couple of new suspects.
Yes.
We've both been very much like, it's Amy, it's Amy, it's Amy. I no longer feel like it's Amy.
Yeah.
Sonia said something very interesting in this episode that made me feel like it might be her. She made a suggestion that I was just like, why? And now I'm kind of like, oh, maybe this is why.
Yeah, I feel like I can rule out someone in a way that I couldn't before this episode, but I also feel like, yeah, I'm more suspicious of Sonia than I was before. But once again, like the thing that Nine Bodies is doing that's really, really good is that they're really trying to just make the suspect list as broad as humanly possible. Like they're
Yes.
making every single person still look shady for one reason or another. And that, of course, gives us the glorious opportunity to put on detective caps and look at all these people when it comes to the evidence for and against them. Rest assured, we're going to. Before we do, be sure to hit that subscribe button because we do have a few more episodes of Nine Bodies left. But beyond just that, very busy, very exciting time here in between The White Lotus, which certainly has its own great mystery right now. Yellow Jackets, Severance is ending very soon. The Last of Us and The Handmaid's Tale are coming very soon, and we're going to have plenty of coverage of those as well.
Also, we are almost at 70,000 subscribers.
Yes.
It's a huge milestone for us here at the channel. So if you haven't subscribed and you'd like to help us get to that milestone, hit that subscribe button. You can also support us further by joining our Patreon. We will have a link for you below where we are covering The Pit exclusively over there, which is airing on Max, and Bosch Legacy. The final season is coming up on Prime Video, and we will be doing reviews over there as well on that. So thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you, guys. We really, really appreciate that.
All right, let's pour one out for Carlos. He is gone. I think none of us over here, neither of us thought that Carlos was behind this, really. No. It just felt like he was exactly what he was saying he was. He was a luchador that had gotten done dirty in his last fight. He was on his way to like regain himself and fight the governor again and take back the title. And he's just not going to get there. He is gone. That one really hurt.
I found the big reveal related to Carlos to be very entertaining. Even though I'm sad to see him go, this whole why is he wandering off so much being revealed as he just needs his protein, bro. He just got to improve those gains. He's got to make sure he's in peak condition for when he gets rescued and he can go and wrestle again.
Absolutely. I mean, it made complete sense that he's the person that's been taking the food. He's like, oh, my fight is in 3 days. Now it's in 2 days. Like, I have to still be in the best condition that I can be because this is the fight of my life.
Yeah, and he doesn't want anyone to see what he's doing, obviously, because then they're going to be like, well, how dare you? Why are you thinking selfishly? But we've seen over and over again now, and they even had it a little bit in the flash forward, if you will, at the start of the episode, which was also ironically a flashback because we saw some of his wrestling as Rapido about like how important this is to him, and he's going to do whatever he can in order to make it happen.
I also think that Carlos really believed in the transmitter, and I think he was right to do so. I think if it hadn't been either sabotaged or the gum just didn't work and it pulled apart. I mean, it could be either thing. I mean, I think we all think it was sabotage, but who knows? They seem to be getting up and down this mountain with like ease, which was kind of like funny to watch. It's so high up there. It's like, oh, you guys just happen to have like a perfect Skyrim path where you can just walk up a mountain. I was like, this is very convenient for you guys. It feels like if they can walk up there in a day, someone else can walk up there in a day and just be like, boop, that's the end of the transmitter.
Yeah, let me ask you, do you think you could get up that mountain? Because I'm sort of
No,
feeling like, okay,
100% no. I'm the person back at camp.
I feel like there's a part of me that thinks that I could, but I think my fear is that I would also be the person going down the mountain. It's like anytime I see some sort of big incline, I'm like, I walk a lot, so my calves are in good shape. So I was like, okay, maybe I could do that, but I also have terrible balance. So I would be tumbling down and you would be at camp watching me roll down this hill. It was pretty impressive that they found that, but yeah, I think that somebody has cut this transmitter off. It just feels like if they're rescued, then they can't be taken out. It's a lot harder.
Okay, let's talk about Sonia because there's some weird stuff that is going on there. When
Yeah.
they decide that they're going to go back up there to take a look at this, transmitter and everything that's going on, it's her and Kevin, and they're kind of having this trust conversation where Kevin is trying to kind of build some trust with her. Don't trust Zach. You can trust me. I'm like,
Mhm.
okay, Kevin, you're looking kind of weird and shady here at this point. They see these birds off in the distance and they're like, we should leave the transmitter and go and check out these birds. I'm like, something is very wrong with this. That means that that this transmitter has been dealt with and that it is not transmitting anymore. And you do not want anybody to know that it has been pulled apart because then you can put it back together again. They'll go back down, and then whoever is sabotaging it has to make that trek back up the mountain again to unplug it so that nobody comes. I had a really hard time believing that either one of them, except for whoever's
Yeah.
sabotaging it, would leave that transmitter to go and check out what the birds are circling. You can do that after.
Okay. This is what I'm really curious about. Once again, the phenomenon of Nine Bodies wants us to suspect everybody at one form or another. Like,
Yes.
what's suspicious to me about Sonia? I mean, sure, it goes back to her knowledge of the mushrooms last week, but then you're
Yes.
also adding on top of it everything you've mentioned and even the whole climb sequence. Like, I've gone back and forth on this in my head.
Mhm.
The idea that, oh, she stumbles, but then she's able to grab the transmitter. But is she trying to still downplay her own physical ability a little bit here to
Mhm.
try to make herself look maybe not as strong, not as fast as she might be, because she seems like she's in
Mhm.
pretty good shape, and you
Mhm.
got to be to sort of be out in the wilderness doing photography like she
Mhm.
claims that she's doing. I mean, it's a little bit different than just like standing in the city and taking a picture of a building, which is the sort of photography that I could do. I think you have to have a little bit of knowledge and ability.
Okay, the big clue here that it is Sonia. She is the person who was like, we should move camp away from the plane. And when she said it, everybody just looked at her like there was lobsters crawling out of her ears because it doesn't make any sense. Like, this is where the plane went down. People are going
Yeah.
to come and rescue you. Why are you leaving the plane where the most resources are as well? Like, let's say a rainstorm comes, which happens in the jungle. You're going to want to have shelter, and the plane is the only place there is shelter. You have the seats there where you can sleep as well. Like, none of this makes any sense that we should leave the plane. The only reason you want people to leave the plane is so that you don't have to kill anybody anymore, so that you can get to the product that the lizard keeps going to.
I think it's a reasonable argument to make at this point. Like, there's clearly a lot of valuable stuff aboard this plane, which
Yes.
I don't think is a jaw-dropping reveal, but it makes
No.
sense for what is going on here, because it's like, okay, what has to be on this plane, or what's important about this plane that, one, you're going to facilitate something like this happening. Like, clearly this plane was never meant to actually make it to Houston. Like, we saw
Right.
everything in the air with Octavio. So you did not want to run the risk of whoever's examining the plane on the other side, like going and finding all this. So you probably also had some sort of deliberate ideas to kind of approximately where it would quote unquote land. Like, it's probably hard to pinpoint exactly.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's like there's sort of two trains of thoughts here.
Yeah.
Either Octavio didn't know what was on the plane and the GPS, went cuckoo and then the plane fell and whoever's trying to get to the product got to
Yeah.
the product. Or he knew what he was transporting, which is why he made that video to his woman being like, I'm probably in trouble and you're probably in trouble because I know what I'm moving
Yeah.
and it's not going to make it to the destination because my GPS has gone haywire.
Yeah.
And now, I'm going to be crashing. He may have suspected that it was sabotaged and that somebody else who knows that he is transporting this product is basically taking the plane.
I'm going to say something now that I will probably get some eye rolls on.
All right.
Any show/movie that has this much quote unquote product that we see, I'm almost instantly in, because it almost always means that it's going to be a good time, because you're either going to have like some massive fight scene break out over it. You're
Yep.
going to have one person who ends up enjoying their own supply a little bit, and then that gets a little bit crazy.
It's gonna be like that bear movie where
Yes.
they enjoy the supply and you have a bear that's like rolling around.
I just think out of all of the potential products that are like this is the most entertaining sort of product, because it produces the most wild results. So I appreciate that when it comes to this reveal.
Absolutely.
Okay, let's go ahead and roll some people out, since we've talked a lot about who is responsible.
Yes.
I kind of feel like we can roll out Amy now, as much as
I agree.
we both wanted to be Amy truthers in these videos, but the problem now is like, okay, she's clearly seeing somebody that's tied to her traumatic past.
Big reveal.
Yeah, like it's a big reveal. It's really, really sad, but she's just really troubled. And I think that's ultimately what's exactly going on with her. It's too hard to buy into this idea that every single time she's taking somebody out, it's because she's seeing this other person.
No.
Yeah, there'd have to be something that was like sending off a specific signal in her head to do this, and then we're getting into like some sort of weird psychological thriller. And I don't think Nine Bodies is a sci-fi show.
No, and here's the thing too, is that if it was just Amy dealing with her trauma and that it's triggering her into doing this, then why have the product reveal with the lizard at the end? It's like, you've given us this as the motivation of why this is actually happening. This stuff isn't because of what Amy went through. I think Amy's entirely off the table.
Yeah.
And I actually think that Dan, who I really dislike, is also off the table. I just don't think he's behind all this. I know we saw him like grab Amy and he's got this temper, and we saw all these cards of him being a lawyer, and he's like, oh, it's my, shady past, but we'll talk about that when we get back. Do I think he's shady? Yes. Do I think he's doing this? It's just too obvious.
Yeah, he's like bootleg Saul Goodman at this point. Like, he's just somebody who clearly has a lot of quote unquote jobs, who's trying to make a quick buck, who probably was taking advantage of Amy for her money for whatever other reason, but that does not make him a killer. And I think the idea that we did see him lose his temper, like that to me sort of signals, okay, you're probably not it. And so I'm gonna put one more person on this list now. So we might have 3 people who are quote unquote in the clear.
Okay.
I don't think it's Lisa.
Oh, I do.
Okay, here's the reason why. We saw the confrontation briefly between Carlos and this mystery person, and this mystery person who took him out, like, they had a very particular frame, and I don't think the body type matched Lisa at all. And so unless Lisa is in on it, which I guess is possible, and there's somebody else who's out there, I don't think Lisa is the one who is doing it herself.
It's possible that there are 2 people that are doing this. I had been kind of rolling that around, and I know there's 9 bodies, but it's possible that when you've got the 2 people at the end, that one just turns on the other person, like watching Traders or something like that, where it's like, we can share the product and the money, but I'm not going to. I found it very suspicious how knowledgeable Lisa is about the wildlife in this jungle. When she took out that animal and she was like, oh, it's a blah, blah, blah. I can't remember what it is. I was like, how do you know that? Like, why do you know that? You're not just calling it, like with the monkey, oh, it's a monkey. It's like, it's a very specific animal that's to this region. And why do you know that?
She's like me. I took a monkeys and apes class when I was in college, and I can identify gibbons by like, oh, that is Hyperbates leucogenes right there.
Right, but Lisa didn't do that when the monkey was killed, but she did do it with this animal. And I was like, okay, this animal is very specific to this region. Why does she know what it is?
It is suspicious. So I guess I will still leave Lisa out there for the, okay,
Maybe there's two.
maybe there's two, maybe you're working with somebody else. We know that she and Travis ran some hotel chains, and maybe Travis was not fully aware of what she was doing.
Right.
It did not seem like they were running the White Lotus, so it seems like
Right.
granted, if they were running the White Lotus, they probably could get away with some stuff there too, but it could be that these hotels are kind of shady and are a front for some of this product in, its own way.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, so we do have a couple of other suspects still on the board. We
Yeah.
have to talk a little bit about here. We still, of course, have Kevin, because we're not going to lose Kevin this early because, they're not getting rid of Eric McCormick this early.
Yeah, and he's the biggest star of the show. So would he roll out of bed to be the killer? Absolutely, right?
Yeah.
We don't know a lot about him except that he is this sort of disgraced doctor,
Yeah.
and he's now selling medical stuff. Is it also he's selling medical stuff? You know what I mean?
Yeah, and the big motive for it to be him at this point is it clearly seems like some really bad stuff happened around him when it was him as a doctor. And he may say, okay, not all of it was his fault or whatever the reasoning might be, but it might have produced such a financially ruinous situation for him where maybe he has had to get into some shady
Right.
dealings in order to get a little bit of his money back.
That's right. He has mentioned that he has financial problems, being sued,
Yeah.
and everything that's going on. Yeah, maybe he is doing this.
Yeah, and it's similar to what's happening with Sonia, where if is Sonia responsible and she's sort of flopping around on the mountain to make herself look not strong, the doctor helping people is a great way to flop around in the field and look innocent.
I just feel like whoever it is has to be able to trek up that mountain.
Yeah.
And we had three people. Carlos is gone. It just feels like it's Kevin or Sonia.
Now, we do have to once again talk about insurance adjuster, which I love that this is coming
Oh,
up
Zach.
every week now, where it's like, okay, Zach, this is really not your job, and he still refuses to tell. He is sort of like the Survivor contestant who everybody knows is a cop, and he's basically being Tony on Cockhead. I'm not a cop, I'm a construction worker. And it's like everybody knows you're a cop. It's like, okay, everyone knows, Zach, you're not an insurance adjuster. Just say what you are.
That's the other thing, too, is he is sort of coming forward as this leader of the group. And he is also the person who was like, let's split up and go out and look for Carlos. And just like the movie Clue, you don't ever end up splitting up. It didn't happen in this situation where if you're off with the other person and you get killed, then it's the other person sort of thing. But you never split up in murder mysteries or horror movies or anything. The minute you split up, everything goes sideways. And he is the person who suggested let's split up.
Yeah, there's a lot of smoke around the idea that it could be Zach at this point, and I don't think Zach would be that obvious. So we're left at this point with a pretty limited group of people now who we think could be responsible because we're fully ruling out Amy and by extension of that, Dan.
Yeah, I mean, tinfoil hat, I think that Dan and Amy are going to go together, and I think they're going next episode.
That's a good idea.
I mean, we only have like 3 episodes left.
Yeah, we only have a few episodes left. This field is going to get smaller and smaller, unless, of course, there is still somebody else out there, and then you're adding that person to the mix. I do, and you alluded to this earlier, like there probably is some sort of twist with these 9 bodies in particular, because it's like there's some who they've kind of hinted around and talked about to a certain extent, like we had everything with Carlos in the flash forward, but they're not really talking about everybody else just yet. And the reason why they're doing that, I think, is because there is going to be a twist where maybe 1 or even 2 people on this plane are actually behind it. And I would love it if there is a situation coming up here where, let's just say hypothetically, it is Kevin and Sonia who are behind everything, and they actually do know each other, and they're pretending that they're not. That's probably implausible, but it's a fun thing to think about.
Yeah, the only thing I would say is that I don't know why they would pretend that they
Yeah.
don't know each other when they're alone. Like, it's possible they know of each other, maybe, but they
Yeah.
are just trying to play their hands really close to their chest. I will say this too. I really like that we actually started to kind of get to know the guards at the morgue a little more
Yeah.
with Lopez and his like a love of luchadors and knowing who Carlos was. And he was
Yeah.
been at his fight. He was at that particular fight. I know a lot of it was to bring it back to Carlos where he's, watching his last fight down to the last 1% of his bar. But it was nice to actually get to know the guards a little bit.
Yeah, if we're kind of to believe that there's going to be some sort of big reveal tied to them in the present, I think it's important to kind of get a better sense as to who they are, especially if
Yeah,
one of them ends up being involved in this
right,
somehow as well.
right.
That's where we are coming out of Nine Bodies in a Mexican Morgue, episode 3. This show is still incredibly fun.
Yes,
Like,
it
it
is.
is it's just a really good, crazy murder mystery with a number of twists. Let's hope there are more coming.
Yeah.
Also, be sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any more Nine Bodies coverage. And also join our Patreon. That link is in the description below. We're covering exclusively there The Pit.
Yep.
Bosch Legacy's coming up. Thank you guys for your support. We'll see you here next time.